Hello and welcome to all of my friends out there in Swagaland. We are going to be putting away disappointed Daddy Egnards today and do something that we don't normally do here. And that is we are going to be saying thank you to CG and be giving them some praise and accolade for a change that they made recently. And I know we don't want to put them on this big pedestal because there are a lot of negatives when it comes to eras. And this is going to sound a little bit like a backhanded compliment. But the reality is that they did do something recently that is positive, and the behavior analyst in me who wants to reward them here, just because I am hoping that it will reinforce positive behaviors and will push them to do better in the future. So, with that said, let's talk about era challenges. Now, era challenges are a pretty divisive game mode in that they replaced galactic challenges, and I never necessarily liked galactic challenges, and I didn't really fully interact with them because I didn't find the rewards to be as interested as the time spent on them. But the reality is that they were a puzzle of a game mode. And honestly, there were content creators like Bit Dynasty and Scribe who did put a lot of their content into providing ways for players to get through them. And I feel like those guys really did get fucked when CG removed the game mode overall. Errand challenges were supposed to be, or at least we were told were going to be a challenge with the new era content. But in reality, they just ended up being a stat check where you brought your character in. If it was the right level, they were going to win. Or they were going to lose, right? And you got a small amount of era currency. The game mode lasted for about a week. You do it in about 60 seconds, and everybody was left wondering, why is this sitting in my events tab for a week when I had completed it within the first 30 minutes of day one? But here is where this important change comes into play. If we look at where Galactic era challenges were originally, this is the data mine for our old Galactic challenges. At tier 1, we would get 40 era currency. At tier 2, we would get 80 era currency. And at tier 3, we would get 120 era currency. And this would go all the way down to tier 6, where you'd get 1600 era currency. You would just bring in your character to the fight. If they won the battle, you'd get the currency. Simple as that. Now, with the era of Andor, CG did release a statement saying they were going to be, instead of having one feat on these battles, have four of them. And the purpose of this was to provide more gameplay, to make the era challenges more interested, and to provide more rewards to the players. But the reality was, when this was data mined, that none of this was true, because those feats didn't actually provide any more gameplay. All they did was split the current reward across a number of levels. There was nothing interesting. There was no puzzle. There was nothing for you to do. It was just, hey, if you wailed a little bit harder, you get a little bit more currency, except instead of that currency being on the top, it was a split of the old amount. So if we remember, tier 1, 2, 3 was 40, 80, 120. We see that it was the same here. Tier 1 is still 40 split across 4 feats. Tier 2 is still 80 split across 4 feats. And tier 3 was still 120 split across 4 feats. And what that basically meant was that if you wailed on characters, you got this exact same amount that you were getting before. But if you were free to play or a casual spender, you were actually getting less. And the stated purpose of this change was inherently false. And I did videos on this, and other content creators did videos on this, and we criticized CG for it before it ever came to live. And what ended up happening is that when Vel came to the game, which is when we were supposed to see these era challenges, we actually got an era challenge that looked a lot like the first one. That is to say that when that patch came to the game, CG quietly changed this on the back end and brought us back to what they were doing in the past. They didn't say anything about it. They didn't tell us anything about it. They just brought it in, and we all went about our way. Fine, good, great, grand. That was a small win for the players. Now, yesterday, with the Cinta marquee, era challenges have come back around, and we see that we have 2 feats instead of 1 feat. except the difference here is that the extra error currency that we were getting is off the top and not a part of the original cost. So at tier 1, we used to get 40. You are now getting 40 plus 20 if Cinta is level 21. Tier 2, you are getting your 80 just for going in and winning the battle, plus 40 if your Cinta is at level 32. And at level 3, you are getting 120, just like you were before, and 60 on top if your characters are era level 45. If you are free to play, you are probably beating these first 3 tiers, though not this extra era level 45 section of tier level 3, which means that you should be receiving 60 more era currency than you were before. If you are a whale, if you have spent a lot of money, just at the top tier, you are getting an extra 800 era currency plus the cascade going down. So, of course, the players who are spending more are getting more out of this new system, and it may incentivize more people to do that. But even if you are free to play or a casual spender, you are as well getting more, and that will cascade down as we get to those final marquees and players are getting to about level 65 and being free to play, or again, as a casual spender or an occasional spender, you should be getting somewhere around this 4th tier, possibly this 5th tier, depending on what your roster looks like. And this is a seemingly small change, but it is also an important change because what it means is that CG quietly did listen to us as a player base. They saw something inherently negative that we pointed out to them. And without even releasing a forum post or a Reddit post or writing about it on Discord. They just fixed the issue and let us go about our day. And I do believe that they don't deserve a ton of fanfare for it, but I do believe that they deserve some degree of recognition because, again, I want to reinforce these types of behaviors for the future. If we are constantly shitting on them for all of the negatives that eras have brought to the game, and there is a laundry list of negatives that I have found with the eras overall, they have no reason to make those changes for us, right? So I do want to point that out as being something that is positive. I will say though, era challenge is still, it's not even really a game mode. It is a stat check. It is not interesting. It is very difficult for them to put in something that is interesting there. I don't know how they can solve this issue other than to maybe take era challenges. We're going to pop back in here, right? And where it says win with Cinta present, instead that feat will say win with Cinta present and no legacy characters. Win a battle with Cinta present era level 21. Win with Cinta present at era level 21 and no legacy characters. And I'm getting to my point here. And then including maybe 2 more feats at half of the cost of this new whale one, right? 20, so 10 and 10. And those 2 feats allowing legacy characters in with old Galactic Challenge style feats as well to at least give players some degree of extra reward, but also to give them some degree of puzzle or challenge. Beyond that, I don't necessarily know what they could do with this game mode to make it a game mode, right? But that is not the purpose of this video. This purpose is just to point out what is 100% a positive change. CG, I do appreciate you for that. I have been highly, highly, highly critical during these era challenges, during these era times. I am still very negative on Coliseum and a lot of the changes that have been made. I have lost a lot of my friends in these changes and in leaving the game, and that is very, very frustrating to me, but I am seeing just the smallest semblance of care, and that is important. With that said, peace out, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.